Hello everybody, this is Lord Bara. I'm going to step outside of Bara Town for this one because I keep getting asked the same question over and over again, and it seems to be frustrating a lot of people. The question is, how do I set up production chains? So I'm going to try to address that question as best I can in a little how-to. So I just started a brand new map and I've randomly selected a starting location. Just so happens that it's between 3 resource deposits, which is a complete fluke, but actually a really good start for a map. You saw me dismiss the tutorial at the very beginning there. There's no reason why you should need to do that if you're new to the game. Please follow the tutorial, it does an excellent job at guiding you through the steps, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to illustrate in the best way that I know how I think about production chains in version 1.9. So I just dropped down the town centre there to kick things off. You can see that the first thing that you're given as a resource is 10 villagers. And you can think about villagers in terms of resource because I know it's mean, but they are, because they will be working in your production chains. None of this is going to look pretty, you understand. I'm just going to throw things down and use them as an explainer. Normally what I do at the beginning of the game on this first tile that you select is I just hit the extraction brush, max size it, and then paint the entire tile. It's pretty rare that I don't want to destroy or don't want to extract any of the resources. You could, if you wanted to, be more selective about that. But I'll talk a little bit more about zoning a little bit later. For now though, let's just move on and start building a couple of production chains to illustrate what it is that I'm trying to show. I'm going to start here with the berries, the gathering hut, and then I also put down a mining camp. And these are good because they actually represent the 2 types of production chains that you can have in version 1.9. One is for food and one is for goods. This is the warehouse here, and it's not automatically unlocked like the granary is. I don't know why it's set up like that, but I'll come back to it later. For now though, let's just focus on the food production chain. Like all good medieval city building games, you need a berry patch, a cluster of berries. That's going to be what your people survive on. How they survive on berries, I have no idea. But the first thing you need is a berry picker, which is here, and that will require a granary. And the reason it requires a granary is because the way that your villagers get food, the way that they buy food is through the market. Simply having a berry picker and no market for them to buy berries at would mean that they just starve to death. So it's a 3-step process. Pick the berries, store the berries, sell the berries, and it looks like that. Each one of those buildings, the berry picker, the granary, and the market stall, will all need a person, a villager, to work inside them. Let's assume for a moment that that's now up and running and move on to other resources. I'm going to need a warehouse. So I buy that from the book, from the common tier actually, and you can find it down in the build menu next to the granary under the logistics section. It works exactly the same way that the granary does, except it doesn't store food, it just stores resources, planks and wood and stone and other things like that, tools. One thing that I did forget to say is that in order to build all these things, the very first building that you're going to have to build is the builder's workshop. So that is the number one building that you put down. Assign a worker in there, and then they can start building the rest of these buildings that I've just put down. The main difference between the food production chain and the products production chain is where they go. Food will always go to your villagers if you set up the production chain like you see there on the left. But products, initially, they don't go to your villagers at all. The only thing that you can do with them is either use them for building or trade. So you can think about it like this, if you like. You can have 2 production chains, one for trade and one to fulfill needs. There is some overlap because you can also trade food if you were producing lots and lots of it. That will all depend on the map you're on and the resources that you have available to you. While we're talking about needs, let's just look into that in a little bit more detail, because as you just saw, I also put a well down, and the reason I put a well down is because if I look at this villager here, his needs are water, food, housing and service. But if you look more closely at the food, it says 0 of 2 foods. Now, I've only got 1 food here. That's berries. Like I said, the tutorial, if you follow that, will take you through this process, but you're obviously going to need a second type of food, because otherwise this village is not going to be satisfied, and you run the risk eventually of them being so unsatisfied that they leave. If I go back into the book to have a look at what is available for me to buy, you can see that my options are fish or hunting. Again, your selection there is going to depend on the resources that you have available to you on your map, but if you look over here, clearly fish isn't a good option because I'm a long way from a body of water. I'm landlocked, essentially trapped. So I'm going to select hunting. Now, hunting works a little bit differently from berries. You need to have the area which you want to hunt in to be zoned. So we need to go over to a zoning tool, and it's this orange brush that's now available after you unlock the hunting technology. If you're wondering where you should paint the hunting zone, just look for these little boar icons. They will be in clusters of forest. So if I just paint all of this forested area here, that should be enough for one hunter. One hunter will be able to be sustained in that size of a forest. And my rule of thumb for that in version 1.9 is it's about between 3 and 5 icons, boar icons per hunter's hut. This building is the butcher. So in this production chain, you need a hunting zone, a hunter, and a butcher, and then the granary, and then the market. And if that sounds more complicated, yes, it is, but it doesn't have to be, because I want to show you the way that I think about it. Let me just move these things out of the way. I know what I'll do here. Let me simplify it even further. From left to right is the entire production chain. In the first column is the raw resource. In this case, it's berries and boar. In the second column, it's the extraction or production. In this case, it's both, but as you progress through the game, you can add a few extra columns to here. For example, for bread and cheese, you will have to add additional columns because they take additional processing.
And you're also going to need a lot of prosperity to do that.
Thank you for that. Yes, indeed. As you move through the progression tiers, you'll be able to unlock new technologies and new production chains. But for now, I feel like that's all there is really left to say, other than to talk about trade. But I think I'll save that for a later video. And for now, I'll just say, if you have been, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, leave a like. This has been Foundation, and I've been Lord Barra.